Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about education and its relationship with economic productivity. Now, certainly when I was going through high school and studying economics as part of the college course and so on, the relationship between higher levels of education and productivity was one that was totally made. And I agree in a general sense. I agree with it. A rigorous education in the sciences and in the business and this and that, I think it will create a more productive society. And at the time we were, when globalization was sort of the earlier stages, when manufacturing was being sent offshore to China and places like that, it was sold to us, the Western populace, it was sold to us, well, look, we're getting rid of all those shitty low-end jobs, the dirty manufacturing jobs, because, look, we're all going to be highly educated. We're going to place a real emphasis on advanced education. So we're all going to be doing, designing rocket ships to the moon and this and that. And that. We're all going to be PhDs in brain surgery and so on. We're all going to be engineers. So really, that doesn't matter that we're losing those manufacturing jobs, because we're all going to be, doing software coding and so on. And that was sort of how it was sold to us. And it possibly could have sort of had worked to some extent, provided the education had been focused and rigorous. But it didn't go that way. The social engineers managed to sort of take over that whole thing, and instead of making education rigorous and preparing people to be productive workers, it went down the path of social equity and social engineering rather than economic engineering. But it was sold to us as an economic engineering productivity thing. Doesn't matter we're losing all those jobs to China. We're sending off because we're all going to be highly educated geniuses, and we're going to move into a nirvana of productivity. Now, I was just looking recently at an article that said that 55% of women, this is Western women, and I'm guessing it's referring to the United States, but it could be Western women more generally. But it said 55% of women have bachelor degrees, so a three-year degree course. Now, they don't say what those bachelor degree courses are. They could all be in lesbian dance theory or something else. But anyway, then when you add in the associate degrees, 2-year courses, and then the community college courses, then the claim is that between 80 and 85% of women now have an advanced education. So they've got their junior high school diploma, their senior high school diploma. Now they've got additional qualifications or certifications on top of that. That doesn't square away with some of the other numbers that a third of kids that start college end up dropping out, before even halfway. And the majority of those are women doing things like lesbian dance theory and whatnot. But anyway, there's this idea that we now have the best educated workforce ever, or you're the best educated population ever, particularly amongst women. Now, given that women had the lowest levels of education prior to this social equity and affirmative action sort of education system, the argument is, well, say in the 1970s, only 1% of women had a college degree or an advanced education beyond high school. Now we're looking at it's 80, 85%. I mean, wow, look what we've achieved. Look what we've accomplished. So, all right, on the face of it, that does look like an achievement or an accomplishment. So let's now go to the economic data. Well, from an economic perspective, productivity in the West per worker has never been lower. In fact, from the time that stats were kept, it's about as low as you can get. So productivity, economic productivity, has never been lower, while education has never been higher, or women's education has never been higher. So something isn't really working here. What's going on? Why has the best educated workforce ever in human history is delivering the lowest level of economic productivity. Now, it doesn't take a degree in rocket science to work this one out. The degree, the courses, the education that's being done is all through affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion, and social engineering and equity and so on. It's the last thing they're doing is having a rigorous education. Now, the trouble with the rigorous education, if they'd gone down that path, is not many people meet the standard. There are not many really bright people around. There never will be. Now, you want as many of them as possible to get through to do an advanced education. Sure, that's no problem. But there's still going to be not many of them. Let's be over the top generous and say there's 10% of the population that's going to make that sort of elite grade in educational terms or IQ terms or just educational brain power terms. There's just not many of them. Now, you can subdivide into various fields. For example, you may get a particularly bright plumber or electrician or I don't know, mechanic or something like that. You do get those sort of people. But again, the numbers are going to be very small. So say across the board and across all industries, you're only going to get 10%, if that. In fact, that's a generous thing. So by giving 85% of women some sort of advanced education, whetting their appetites for bigger things, hey, you're destined for the stars, babe. When in fact they've got an IQ of 80 or something like that, but you've still given them their degrees, all for social equity reasons, then you actually don't have an educated workforce. Instead of having a workforce that might have gone to work and done productive things at age 15 or 16 or something like that, you've kept these people in the education system, these low IQ, lazy, inept people who've got no drive or ambition, who don't give a shit. You've kept them in the education system. So now they exit the other end at 21 or 22 years old in serious debt in some cases from student loans. And not only do they have no work, the only work they've ever done is wave placards for climate change or we're fighting Nazis. And, that's the only thing they've ever done. So they've never done anything productive and never had to earn an income or do anything like that. So, and anything they got even there was all affirmative action, socially engineered. So the reality is that we've just got a bunch of affirmative action certified people that in reality would have been kicked out of high school at age 15 and would have gone to work. So they haven't done productive work ever in their lives and now have expectations that are far beyond expectations of a career and far beyond their actual capabilities. Now, they could reasonably say, well, look, I've got a degree. I mean, I've been to university. I made it into university. I got the senior high school diploma. I got a degree. I must be pretty hot shit. So why am I not president of the bank? And this sort of thing. So they're not prepared to work or to start at the bottom or to. So we've got more unproductive, lazy, parasitic people with degrees and certifications than we've ever had in human history. And that's the reality that we're currently facing. How can those people be turned into productive workers? And I'm not sure they can. Even the bottom end jobs that you may start with as a young kid, like a 15-year-old, even they're gone and been given to mass migrants, illiterate peasant mass migrants. Many jobs, if they're not being as in automated, they're being put into checkbox, checklist type things. So and they're software generated a lot of the time, so that people just do task one, open door, task two, pick up a carton, task three, put on counter, task four, and so on, and that type of thing. So those are the only, and those now are low paid. They're automated, repetitive jobs. They're low paid jobs. So really, there's very few places for these people to go. They're simply not capable of doing the heavy lifting intellectual work that would command a higher salary. Now, in order to absorb them into the workforce, there is a huge parasitic sort of layer of workers that's been created in the services industry. We can see this through, say, the public service, the expansion of the public service, things like USAID and goodness knows what, type jobs are being created, and these people are being stuffed in there. Some of the jobs actually pay above average wage. There was recently a regional government in Australia decided to have a Department of Climate Change, and they hired like 30,000 people within a few months, all of them pink-haired lesbians and so on. So again, but they're just parasites. They're not producing anything. So even the jobs that are being created to absorb the low IQ idiots that are being, through social equity, put through the education system, even those jobs are still created for low IQ, low IQ flunkies, and are themselves the epitome of non-productive work. So this is the problem. The most highly educated workforce is not highly educated, and the jobs that have been created for them are completely unproductive jobs, and thus productivity and the standard of living and the wealth all across the Western world has gone down the sinkhole. And it all, I think, began with this idea of let's create equity through these fake educational programs. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.